descending like iron rain. Where Zurith soldiers had once mocked human fragility, they now met soldiers in exosuits who fought like storms, their rifles firing bolts that tore through armor as if it were paper. The Zurith had mocked humanity's compassion. They believed humans would hesitate, would pull their punches. But Earth had remembered the envoy on the spikes, the burned schools, the children who had screamed. And when humans remembered, mercy died. Entire Zurith fleets attempted surrender. None were spared. The human broadcasts were cold and absolute. There will be no surrender. There will be no survivors. The Zurith capital itself trembled as humanity's grand fleet arrived. Thousands of ships blotted out the sun, and for the first time in their long history of conquest, the Zurith knew fear. Retribution without end. The Zurith High Marshal stood on his balcony, staring at the night sky as it turned red. He remembered his own words at the banquet, the mocking laughter, the arrogance. Now he saw those words reflected in fire as orbital strikes rained upon his world. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled. He had celebrated too early. In his final moments, as shockwaves tore through the Dominion citadel, he heard the human broadcast one last time. This is what you earned. The Zurith Dominion, once feared across the stars, collapsed in a matter of weeks. Not because humanity fought them as equals, but because humanity fought them as executioners. The whispered lesson. When it was over, silence returned to the stars. But this was not the silence of despair. It was the silence of fear. The Zurith were gone, burned from existence. Entire worlds reduced to ruins, fleets to drifting ash. In the aftermath, no alien empire dared celebrate. No one mocked. No one cheered. Instead, whispers spread through every council, every marketplace, every fleet. Never provoke Earth again. Humanity had proven its patience could stretch for decades, but when broken, its vengeance was infinite. They did not rage blindly. They calculated, they struck with precision, and they erased utterly. The galaxy now looked at Earth not as a voice of peace, but as a storm waiting in silence. A storm no one would ever dare awaken again. They struck without hesitation, and worse, without mercy. The Zorathi Dominion's armada descended on Nova's Reach, a human colony world still in its infancy, its surface dotted with farms, homes, schools, and fledgling spaceports. To the Zorathi, it was not a target of war, but a stage for demonstration. They came not only to conquer, but to humiliate. Thousands of civilians watched in horror as the alien ships, black as void and shaped like spears, broke orbit and unleashed their wrath. Cities were reduced to ash within moments. Families huddled in bunkers, listening to the earth shake with thunder not born of storms, but of orbital bombardment. Those who tried to flee into space were swatted from the sky by Zorathi interceptors. And when resistance finally came, a single outdated human defense frigate, the aliens made a spectacle of its destruction. They boarded it, dragged the captain into the void, and broadcast his slow execution across the system. It was not enough for them to win. They wanted humanity to kneel. The feast of arrogance. The Zorathi celebrated. On their homeworld, massive banners were unfurled declaring the humans broken, their resolve shattered. Drinking halls roared with laughter. The High Warlord spoke of humanity as a curiosity that had overreached, a species of fragile dreamers unfit for the galactic stage. Their fleets paraded through allied systems, replaying the broadcast of the human captain's death as if it were a great theatrical performance. Earth will sue for peace, they mocked. They will come crawling, begging for mercy, the way soft races always do. The galaxy echoed their laughter. Other species, watching from afar, whispered that perhaps the humans truly had been overrated. The legends of Earth's strange resilience, their bloody wars of old, their endless adaptability, maybe these were just myths humans told themselves. The Zorathi declared victory not just over a colony, but over the very idea of human defiance. They believed the humans would cower. They believed wrong. The silence before the storm. For weeks, the galaxy heard nothing from Earth. No ambassadors, no fleets, no retaliation. The Zorathi mocked the silence. See, they are too frightened to speak. But others began to notice subtle signs. Human supply convoys vanished from trade lanes, not because they were destroyed, but because they were recalled. Merchant fleets disappeared into hidden docks. Civilian traffic went dark. Entire sectors of human space fell eerily quiet, as though the stars themselves had gone into mourning. The silence spread unease. Something ancient and primal stirred in the whispers of diplomats and spies. This is not surrender. This is preparation. The Zorathi ignored it. They believed silence was proof of submission. But to those who knew humanity's history, silence was the crack of ice before the avalanche. The awakening of the war machine. Then, without warning, the silence broke. Across the Sol system, ancient shipyards long thought dormant roared to life. Massive dreadnoughts, hidden for decades under planetary crusts and within hollowed moons, powered on. Their engines lit space like new suns. In orbit over Mars, ship after ship rose in formation, black-armored leviathans bristling with weapons that made Zorathi arsenals look like toys. Carrier groups, each capable of unleashing entire wings of strike craft, slid free of their cradles. The Earth Defense Network transmitted a single chilling message across every channel. We do not forgive, we do not forget, retribution has begun. The galaxy listened in horror as human fleets mobilized not like a frightened prey, but like a predator who had been waiting for the excuse to hunt. The first blow. The retaliation began at the Zorathi's forward outpost on Vaynar III. The garrison expected a skirmish, perhaps a probing raid. What arrived instead was a storm. From the void, human destroyers fell upon them, engines screaming blue fire. Orbital cannons shredded the Zorathi defense grid within minutes. Planetary command posts were erased in lances of light. The survivors described it later as if the stars themselves had been turned against them. No quarter was given. Every ship in orbit was annihilated. Every broadcast from Earth carried the same phrase, repeated over and over, in a voice cold as iron. For Nova's reach. The galaxy watched, stunned. The Zorathi laughter began to falter. The flood of steel. But the first blow was only the beginning. Fleet after fleet poured from human space, not ragged militias or desperate convoys, but a war machine honed by centuries of conflict on Earth itself. Massive ships, each bristling with enough firepower to level continents, surged into Zorathi territory. Entire systems fell in hours. Zorathi fleets, once thought unmatched, crumbled before the relentless tide. Where the Dominion had mocked humanity's fragility, they now learned of their fury. Human soldiers, armored like walking fortresses, descended on worlds the Zorathi thought secure. They fought not with desperation but with cold, methodical vengeance. One by one, the banners of the Dominion were torn down, burned, and replaced by the insignia of Earth. The galaxy, which had laughed weeks before, now stared in silence. The storm at the heart. The climax came at Zorath Prime, the Dominion's throne world. The High Warlords gathered their greatest fleet, tens of thousands of ships, an armada so vast it blotted out the system's suns. They boasted that no force in history could break their line. Then humanity arrived. The humans did not send an equal fleet. They sent more. Waves upon waves of warships, dreadnoughts larger than cities, carriers releasing endless rivers of strike craft. When they emerged from slipspace, it was not a fleet. It was a storm given form. The battle lasted 3 days. Entire planets trembled as orbital bombardments cracked their crusts. Zorathi fleets fought with desperation, but one by one their ships were torn apart. Human boarding parties carved through their flagships like fire through dry grass. On the final day, Earth's dreadnoughts broke the Zorathi command ship in half, its wreckage burning across the skis of their capital. The warlords who had once laughed at humanity died in silence, staring at the fire falling upon their world.